and a very warm welcome to you. You know what I like to say when it is Thursday, it's got us to the weekend. And of course, we are celebrating in the loft as we continue the theme of all things fish. But let me first introduce our resident chef, our foodie, Uchumi, award-winning. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Palesa. And you know, if something is nice, you gotta do it twice, right? So we had to bring Julie back.
I know having you as a guest, Julie, has been nothing but amazing. Being an extraordinaire specialist in all things fish, are you ready to get into this Thursday?
Definitely, thank you.
Love it for us. Walam Zanti, it is officially time for another deep dive for seafood on today's Afternoon Express Masterclass with me, Palesa Dembe. We've reeled in Julie Carter from Ocean Jewels again, so we're going to be making with her a peri-peri prawn pasta, an irresistible seafood paella, and calamari with spicy tartar sauce. Now, all of that sounds so delicious. Dumi, what are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to probably the pasta, because I really do like my pasta a lot, and I do like prawns. But Palesa, I think because it's such a fishy, cook-along or masterclass, I'm looking forward to trying every single thing we've got on the menu today.
Well, that is what it's all about, and that's why we have Julie back, because back in the loft, our fishmonger and owner of Ocean Jewels, Julie Carter, she's going to be joining us again to tell us more about sustainable fishing and giving us a breakdown of the advantages of frozen seafood. Now, as we do continue this warm welcome, we're keeping things cold, very chilly, in fact, sub-zero, frozen temperature when it comes to our seafood today. Before we get into all the different types of seafood that is best frozen, can you just take me through the advantages of having frozen seafood?
Well, I think for me, it's the convenience. You can just take out what you need. It's easy. You can have prawns for dinner, mussels for dinner. Also, cost is important, because you just take out what you need. You just defrost exactly what you need for dinner.
Absolutely.
And also, all seafood, if you buy it from a reputable fishmonger or retailer, have been frozen at their best. So, you know, nutrition-wise and quality-wise, you're going to get a good product.
I like that. But, you know, with every pros, there's also cons. There's another side of the coin, essentially. And having to deal with fish, a lot of people want to avoid, number one, making sure that it is fresh the entire time. Sometimes when you throw things in the freezer, it's difficult to tell the freshness of a fish. So we do want to make sure that we are healthy and we're not sick. So what do we need to look out for?
So when you're buying frozen seafood, always check the packaging. Make sure that the packaging's not broken, it's sealed. Then look for signs of that the product has been defrosted and refrozen. So like ice at the bottom of the product, a lot of ice crystals on the product. That will show you that the product's been defrosted or mishandled. So you want to make sure that the fish has been frozen or the seafood's been frozen throughout its journey until it gets to you.
I love the fact here that Julie is saying the process of finding out that your fish is fresh or not starts at the shops. You need to find out if there's those frozen crystals where you can tell that this bad boy is being defrosted and then frozen again. That's something to avoid. Okay, got you. As you are handing out these tips and tricks, then what are some good hygiene practices to remember when handling fish?
So always try and keep fish and other products separate. So if you're preparing veg and meat and fish for the same dish, try and work with your fish separate, your meat separate, and your veg separate. Obviously, keep your hands clean, keep your cutting boards clean. In kitchens, we like to keep different cutting boards for your meat, your fish, and your veg. And I like to do that at home as well. You don't want your breadboard to smell like fish. So keep your fish board separate, your bread board separate.
So now that you're touching on that and keeping things different, then I'd like to think that even when we do buy things frozen from the store, how do we then maintain the same quality when we freeze them in the house, in our own fridges?
So from store to freezer, don't let your products defrost. Okay. Always keep your products nicely wrapped. Don't leave the boxes open. Yeah. If you open a bag of mussels and you're only using some, seal it correctly. You don't want any air movement over the seafood, because that tends to make it fishy. If you're having steaks of fish as well, once you've taken out what you need, wrap it up carefully so that it's sealed.
And like you said, always with the convenience as well, I guess it also is important to make sure that if you are defrosting any seafood, you only defrost what you need, because you don't want a situation where you'd also then defrost and freeze again. Refreeze.
Yeah, I mean, best to defrost in the fridge, but seafood does defrost very nicely in cold water, but very important, cold water, because warm water is going to start cooking the fish.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of tips and tricks you've given us just within the first few minutes of the show. Number one, good hygiene practices are all the way at the top of the list when you are preparing fish. Making sure that you're not re-defrosting, refreezing again. Make sure no cross-contamination on board here, whether it's your chopping board, whether it's your knife. We're making sure that everything is a-okay. And another thing, when you are putting it in the freezer, making sure that it's wrapped correctly. I love that. Noted. But now let's put that advice quite practically to the test. You've got a beautiful spread. I think every time we have Julie, she comes definitely with a whole lot of fish. So do you want to just talk us through these frozen fish that's in front of us? And then also I want to learn how to clean and debone, essentially, deshell a prawn. Debone a prawn.
Sure. Okay, so we've got the silverfish here, which is defrosted. It's a nice green option. On here we've got a seafood mix. So we've got mussels, fish, calamaris, and crab sticks. And then we have our half-shell local mussels over here. And the pink prawns, which are wild-caught pink prawns. Prawns actually are on the orange list, but this wild-caught pink prawn, the fishery is under improvement. So we're hoping that this particular prawn will be on the green list soon.
Oh, beautiful. Well, Chef, as you do go into that demonstration for us and just showing us the proper way to handle a prawn, I also want to just touch base on, you can go ahead.
Okay.
I just want to also touch base on the fact that we did discuss the SASSY list of sustainability, but for some of our viewers who might have missed our episode on Tuesday, can you just briefly describe the different lists, the 3 different lists, and what they stand for?
So SASSY have divided all the seafood and fish that we eat into 3 categories: green, orange, and red. Green being sustainable, orange being not great, so beware, don't eat it too often. So the prawns you should have for special occasions. And then the red listed species are no eating. So like the Hygiene is red listed, so you wouldn't eat it.
Beautiful. And as you are already taking apart that prawn, we've understood that prawns are on the orange, so be cautious, be careful. Not only should you be careful when you're trading it, but you also need to be careful in cleaning it. So can you just give us a breakdown of what you've done?
Sure, I just cut it down the back of the shell like this and opened it up and pulled out this little thing, and then you can give it a rinse.
So we don't want that. Is that like a membrane, almost like an intestine?
Yeah, it's like an intestine. So the wild prawns need more cleaning. If you buy farmed prawns, they hardly need any cleaning, but the wild prawns are pretty prawny, and you'll have to clean and rinse out the back end.
Perfect. Chef, whilst you are rinsing that out, Dumi, I want to find out from you. We do love things, you go ahead over.
Cool.
We do love things sustainably sourced here. We do want to make sure that the environment is well taken care of. But on the flip side, we've got technology doing something amazing for us. Here it is within the freezing of the fish. So for yourself, how beneficial has the turn of technology, I suppose, had on cooking and food?
It really has, because most times you find that you use so much energy as a person just trying to prepare your food, just trying to make sure your food stays as fresh as possible. So knowing that there are things like, you know, like freezers that are there for us, because before we couldn't do that. You know, having the ability to prepare our foods in ways that are easier. We've got microwaves now. We've got contraptions that you can use in the kitchen that makes it easier to do the work. So just the convenience, I guess, of it.
I love that. Well, we do have a lot of fishy treats on the menu for you today. So just head over to afternoonexpress.co.za if you want to get anything that we're going to be preparing today. Now on social media, this is the question we have for you. Today is all about fish, so what makes you the perfect catch? Make sure you use the hashtag AfternoonExpress in all of your comments. Now, seafood is elevated when you add a little zinc. So coming up, we're going to be making peri-peri prawn pasta. our seafood-inspired Afternoon Express Masterclass. Now, Julie, as a fishmonger, fish extraordinaire, are you ready for this next recipe?
For sure, as long as I've got the seafood.
Well, tick. And speaking of which, do you like prawns? Well, then this recipe will definitely have you longing for more. Our peri-peri prawn pasta is flavorful, spicy, and sure to keep you running back for seconds. Now, Dumi, if it's chili and if it's got some prawns, I'm right there. So what does everyone need to create this masterpiece?
It's quite a simple recipe, Balisa. All we need for it is our pasta. In this case, we're going to be using some spaghetti. You could use any other type of pasta, in this case, macaroni, penne, linguine. It's completely up to you. Just anything that's going to soak up that beautiful sauce. And then because we're going to start with the sauce, and into that sauce, I've got some onion, red peppers, some paprika, some dried herbs, some olive oil, that chili that you absolutely love. And then we need a bit of crunch at the top, so we're going to add a bit of cucumber to that and just crumble a bit of feta at the end. And then Miss Fishmonger over here will be on prawn duty, because since you've showed us how to clean the prawns, now you're going to show us how to cook the prawns. And then Balisa, luckily you're just going to help us with adding that additional flavor to our sauce with those spring onions and some zesty lemon.
Brilliant. And you know, Dumi, I'm so glad you brought up the fact that Julie has taught us how to clean a prawn, so I'm going to make sure that I was well in attendance. Hopefully I get 100%, and I'm going to show you that I was listening. You've already put aside a prawn for me to try. Oh, Mzansi, wish me luck. All right, you spoke about the spine.
Yeah,
right?
Cutting the back of it.
Cutting the back, yes, cutting the back. See, I was already on it. Oh, it actually cuts quite easily.
Quite easy.
I thought I was going to struggle cutting this open, but not at all. Don't worry. We are sanitized, our hands are clean, and we are ready for action. Now, this is the part I'm nervous for. Trying to take out that intestine.
Just put your knife in there and you'll see the intestine, and then just...
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
Yay! I did it! And on that note, let's get cooking! I've got my hype crew and I love it. Okay, Julie, let's get cooking. You've already shown me how to take this out. Okay, so there's excess...
You can just rinse that.
I can just
rinse it out, yeah.
Okay, so as I'm about to do that, Dumi, can you just tell us... detail is specifically what's going into that sauce that you're creating.
Awesome, Palisa. So these layers we've got over here, we've got some onions that we've got at the very bottom, we've got some red pepper, we've got some paprika that we've also added in there, we've got some herbs, and into this I'm going to chop a bit, just roughly chop some red chilies that's going in here. Palisa, I know you like your heat, so I have, because all of us are going to eat this, I've taken out some of the seeds and that membrane, because we don't want to, you know, get our mouths exploded with too much heat. And just a little bit of oil goes in there, and I'm adding some vinegar just for that zinginess that we love whenever we have sauces like this. And then before it goes into our pan, I'm just going to blend our sauce up, and then we'll toss everything together with the prawns that Julie's making for us. So I'm just going to ask for a second while I whiz this up.
Okay.
There we go.
Julie, how hot must your pan be before you put all the prawns inside?
So you want to get your pan warm or hot to get started. You want to give the prawns a nice good rev when you're cooking them. And you just want to be careful not to overcook the prawns. I put some butter and oil in here because you don't want the butter to burn. So the oil is going to prevent the butter from burning when you're cooking them.
Okay, I like that. Now, Dumi, does it matter that the rest of my ingredients for that sauce isn't in just yet?
Not at all, Palisa. You know what I love about such dishes, and also because I love my garlic? I want that additional flavor of garlic at the very end. So I'm going to let the sauce cook down, and then as we add all the other ingredients to it, then we add the garlic as well. So the garlic not only gives us the flavor, but it also absorbs all the flavors of everything else we've put in there. So when the prawns and the pasta go in is when I'll add the garlic as well, just so that those last few ingredients cook together.
Okay, garlic, spring onion already cut. Julie, do you mind passing that on to Dumi? And then I'm going to get started with the lemon. Now, I do not know a seafood dish that does not have a whole lot of lemon to accompany it. So, Chef, do you want to, or rather Julie, you see we've got someone who's like a specialist in any type of field, especially in the kitchen. I almost want to give them the top level of expertise, which is a chef. But when it comes to adding this acidic flavor to fish, what is it about it that makes it such a perfect accompaniment?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I just think the flavor of the lemon and the butter and the garlic all just goes so well with seafood. Growing up, we didn't actually eat a lot of lemon with our fish. It's something that I've learned now in the last couple of years. So it's interesting for me the lemon flavor with fish.
I like that. Okay, we're trying something new, but a lot of people, this is something that is age-old. So on that same note, being able to play with different flavors in the kitchen, today we are using prawns. Do you want to give us, first of all, an understanding between the difference of a prawn and a shrimp?
So shrimps are smaller, the bodies are smaller, and they have less legs, and they're a little bit more curved. So these are definitely prawns. Shrimps would be about that size.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even smaller.
Okay, so then because we are using prawns, can I use maybe lobster, for example, or any type of other shellfish in this recipe?
I think, yeah. I mean, this basic pasta recipe will go with any seafood. I wouldn't use the West Coast lobster at the moment because they're on the sassy red list, but you could use the South Coast lobster. Mussels would definitely work very nicely.
Okay. Chef, can I please ask you to just get started on that lemon?
Yeah?
Just as Utumi is helping out there. So Utumi, on the pasta side, how's it looking?
It's looking good, Balasa, and I just want to touch on something that Julie mentioned here. Can you see how beautifully cooked her prawns are? So
Yeah.
I just want to give people a tip whenever you're cooking prawns to make sure you just keep that in mind. Whenever you're cooking your prawns, you want to make sure they do not form a C. So this is not what you want. You do not want them to be like this because in essence this means they've overcooked. So you want them to form more of a U shape. So if you see the difference between these two, this one is perfectly cooked because you still have some juiciness in it. This, on the other hand, is a little bit more overcooked, and you don't want that because that means it's a bit too dry. Okay. So all we want now is to make sure that our prawns stay nice and juicy and soft, and that's why I'm adding them at the very, very end of our dish here. Everything has been cooked down. I'm actually going to turn it down now and let those flavors mellow together. We're adding your spring onion at the very end, and that's our dish, simple and easy, Bale.
Okay, so Chef, as you are I know Utumi likes a good zest, a good zest on any dish. Now, Utumi, as Chef is about to just use that micro blade or micro planing blade to get that zest out there.
Sure, do you want to just pass me the prawns as well? So while she does that, let me just start plopping on all our prawns. And in fact, Balasa, I don't think we're going to take it out of this pot. We're just going to add it all onto this. And Julie, you can actually zest it onto this plate. Okay. And then I'm going to crumble some feta because, Balasa, and I know you love your dishes nice and spicy, but you also like that saltiness of them. You're a savory queen, not a sweet queen.
That's me. And on that note, I mean, that definitely deserves a round of prawns. To get this recipe, please do visit afternoonexpress.co.za for the full ingredients list. Now it is all about surf, turf and grain in our next recipe, as we're making a super tasty seafood paella when we return. Welcome back to Afternoon Express. Now, Dumi girl, we have just been nailing it when it comes to seafood recipes this week, but now we're taking it a bit surf and turf.
Yes, Palisa, we're doing something that's classic and just packs in so much flavor. I absolutely love this dish.
Here for it. Now, rice is delicious just on its own, but add some exotic spices and a bunch of seafood, and you have a pot full of deliciousness, and in the form of a seafood paella, good enough to feed the nation. And that's exactly what it is.
Yes,
this is a recipe that's almost good for all types of flavors. Everyone in your family who likes seafood or kind of meaty stuff.
You know what I love about a paella, Palisa, that yes, right now we're talking about it being a seafood paella, but it originally wasn't even, it didn't even use seafood.
Stop.
I promise you, it started off, okay, before we start that, let me just start the basis for our paella, because a good paella also starts with a great oil that's going to hold all those flavors together. And I love Axella oil. Because of that, it's light, clear, odorless. So even though we're working with fish, if we're going to be putting the fish in here, you don't have to worry about the oil being fishy, because your nawayona is odorless, it's clear on its own.
Okay.
Then only once you've added your fish ingredients, then everything else takes that fishy flavor.
Now, Dumi, one thing that you've always spoken about when it comes to Axella oil is the fact that it does heat quite high at a high temperature.
Yeah.
Is that necessary in this recipe, or are we taking advantage of the more lower types of temperatures?
In this instance, it works perfectly, because we want to fry off our ingredients here, like this oil, this onion. We want it to get nice and golden brown, and then add those other ingredients, which you've got over there. So as we were talking about the paella, Pali, I've got my onions, we've got some spices here, turmeric, we've got some garlic, paprika, we've got our seafood ingredients, which is going to be our mussels and some prawns, but we also have chorizo. You're going to be adding the tomatoes and the peppers to this as well for us. So if I just take it back a bit, because we were talking about this paella, chop again.
Are these tomatoes? Can I tell you, Mzansi, I really thought that this was like a nachi. So, Dumi, you took all you de-peeled it essentially.
Exactly, Palisa. I don't know if you remember one time we did that trick where we showed people how to get the skin off of a tomato.
Yes.
Where you blanch it. Once you've blanched it, you just peel off that skin. So that's in essence what we've did over there.
Okay, how do you want me to cut it? Because already it clearly matters.
The one thing I love about this dish, you don't have to worry about how big or small you cut it, because it's going to break down eventually as it cooks. So it's not really a stressful thing. So you can go as rustic as you like, because that's what we call when things don't really measure up in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So into this onion that we're going to be cooking here, Palisa, is the rest of our ingredients. I want to start cutting up our chorizo. So as I was talking about the history of paella, so originally it started off back in the farms when the laborers and the farmers, they would basically use whatever rice they had and whatever leftover cuts of meat. So being it chicken and goat and stuff like that, gamey meats. And that's originally how it used to be. And in most places in Spain, I know, because that's actually where it's from, that's how they used to eat it and how they still eat it to this day.
Wow.
But Tina, because we like to add our flavors, add our, zestiness here and there, we're like, why not take it up a notch? And that's why we're adding some seafood today, Palisa.
So it's all about seafood, it's all about turf, but it's also about the grain. And today's grain that we're using is this incredible Axella rice. Now, what makes this Axella rice just so special to me personally is that a little bit goes a long way. All you need is 1 cup of Axella rice, and it essentially, once cooked, it boils up to make in the equivalent of 2 cups, making sure that it's white and fluffy every single time. Talk about a winner grain. And essentially, that's also what's going to help in just making it filling.
Correct.
Rice is a very filling starch.
It is, Palisa, and it's the perfect rice to use for this recipe, because whenever making these kind of dishes, you want a long grain rice, which is exactly what Axella is. So it's perfect for this dish. I've just added a bit more oil to our paella base. Hey, so the Spanish people don't come for me. I said paella, I corrected myself.
And that's so interesting, because an L actually is pronounced as a Y. So you do spell it paella, paella, but you pronounce it a paella. So here's to learning.
It's almost like Sesotho, where the L is pronounced like a D, where you say dienyane, but the actual spelling is with an L. So it's quite interesting how these work. So into our paella base, I've gone in with our chorizo. The reason I'm starting with the chorizo first is because we want the oils and the flavors from the chorizo to render down and release into our paella, Pali.
And what I love about chorizo, it is spicy, it is smoky, And it definitely adds that different dimension of flavors when you are creating a paella. We all know seafood is quite soft on the palate, I'd like to believe, especially prawns, depending on how you prepare it. If you want to pay attention to our previous recipe where we added peri-peri, feel free to do so. But that chorizo kind of packs that peppery punch as well.
Correct, Bale. I don't know if you just saw me making a move over here where I changed my cutting boards, because Julie did mention that if you're going to be, working with fish and any other type of ingredient, it is best to change your cutting board. So I almost made the mistake, but I just changed my cutting boards as well, because you don't want to impart any of the fishy flavor to anything else that you cook with in the kitchen.
Now, Domi, that's a very good question. I'd love to touch base with or Julie about exactly that. What happens if you are putting it all in one pot at the end of the day? Does it matter if you dice it up and prepare it separately, or is it all the same? But essentially here, we're avoiding cross-contamination.
Right, we are avoiding cross-contamination. So the whole idea here, Palesa, is that even though it's going into the same pot, the utensils that we use might be used for something else at a later stage. So we still need to make sure that that's right. So Pale, you can pop in your rice there. As you can see, we've left the seafood to the very end because we don't want to overcook it. We want to make sure it takes in all the flavor, but we also don't want to overcook the flavors there. The spices that I used here were paprika and some turmeric, and then I'm adding some salt and pepper here. And it is important, especially with paella, to make sure you season it well at this stage, because now you're going to add some liquid to it. You're going to add, because as you can see, we've added our rice raw.
Yeah.
I'm stirring it now because if you also remember with rice, if you start stirring it once you've added the liquid, it releases the starch. So what I'm doing now is stirring in all the flavors at this point, because once we add the liquid, we're just going to cover it up and not even touch it. We want that beautiful burnt down crust at the bottom of the plate, and then the rest of it just sits as is.
I have a question. I've been dying to ask this question when it comes to paellas or any type of rice or rice-heavy, grain-heavy dish that you add different savory elements to. Am I able to cook the rice, our Excella rice, separately, cook all of the other ingredients in another pot, and then bring it all together at the end? Or am I almost shortchanging the rice because it doesn't get to soak up all those flavors? I just want to know my options here.
You answered yourself, but that's exactly it, because the reason we're adding the rice here is we want to make sure that it absorbs all of the liquid, all of the spices and flavor we put into our paella.
Okay.
So if you're going to cook it separately, unless you decide to cook it in perhaps the stock and the spices that you're using, then okay, that's definitely fine. But ideally, we want it to form a crust. The whole idea of a paella is that it has to have that crust at the very top, at the very bottom. Okay. So now all we do is we add our stock. I've chosen to use a beautiful chicken stock here. And all we're going to do is let this cook down. As we know, our Excella rice cooks double, so 1 cup gives you 2 at the end. And all we do is cover it with some foil and let this baby cook until ready.
Recap quickly, we are making a delicious savory seafood paella, but another option in terms of rice savory dishes, you can have a savory rice, you can have a biryani, but we're keeping it Spanish today with our paella. Delicious, filling, and so flavorful. To get this recipe, simply head over to afternoonexpress.co.za for the full ingredients list. Now, Dumi, it seems as if we've pretty much handled every type of seafood other than calamari.
And yes, is it really a seafood cook-along or masterclass without calamari?
Absolutely. So we are continuing to add heat when we come back as we prepare calamari with a spicy tartar sauce.
Express yourself.
Afternoon Express, and no, the show is not over. It is not over until the calamari sings.
I love what you did over there, Palisa.
I'm just a comedian today. Now, on the food bill today is crispy fried calamari with a spicy and creamy Clover Classic yogurt tartar sauce. Yes, that's a classic seafood dish that you can prepare as a starter or a main. If it's prepared correctly, it never disappoints. And Julie, this is something that I quite often see on menus as a starter or main, just depending on how you prepare it.
Yeah, I mean, calamari is a classic. Everybody loves calamari. We're using the nice big calamari rings at the moment, but one of my favorites are the small calamaris, the tubes and the tentacles. So there's so much to do with it.
Oh my goodness, my mind has just exploded when it comes to the options here. As we do start cooking, please may you just explain, I know Dumi, we were speaking about this off screen. What is the difference then between the big octopus tentacles, the calamari, the smaller ones, the squid heads, and please just debunk it all.
So an octopus is not a calamari, it's a different creature. So we get octopus, we get squid, and we get calamari. So calamari is actually a smaller type of squid, and it's generally more tender. So it's softer when you're cooking it.
Okay, I like that debunking my different ideas that I had this whole time. I mean, Dumi, you've already gotten started there with the batter.
Yes, Palisa. So into this batter that we've got over here is I've got my eggs and I've seasoned them with some mustard as well as some paprika. And I mean, you could also add a couple more spices in here. It's completely up to you. But the beautiful thing is that you can also season your flour, which we've done. I've added some spices and some salt in here, and then we've also got some breadcrumbs. So as we normally do with breading the bread station, you always start with putting whatever ingredient, be it protein, vegetable. You start with the flour because you want it to be able, you want the eggs to be able to hold on to whatever you're actually going to be deep frying, and then from the egg to your breadcrumbs, whatever the last layer would be. Some people like to do a double dipping into the eggs and breadcrumbs. That's completely up to you. If you want a thicker crust and a crispier texture, you can do that. But I like to, one layer should be perfectly fine.
Definitely, same exactly with me. So as Dumi, you on that, Chef here, you're making a delicious tartar sauce.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with the gherkins and the eggs to go into the tartar sauce.
Okay, and on my side as well, we've got some mayonnaise here, ne Dumi?
Yes, Bala, so you've got some mayonnaise, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned we're making a tartar sauce, because I'd like to think there's no seafood dish, especially the kind we're making now where we're deep frying something. It has to pair with a beautiful tartar sauce, and that's what we're making here. And the Clover Classic Dairy Snack is perfect for this because the flavors from it, you know, are going to marry so well with the mayonnaise and all those other gherkins that we're adding in there. And yes, you're using the 1 kg pack now, Balisa, but if you feel like you don't want to put your dairy snack into a batter, you're more than welcome to just eat it as a snack, because it also comes in those 100 gram and the 175 gram options as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, those individual pack size options just do make all the difference. But today we are using a plain option, and not only is it the plain option, but we're using the entire 1 kg here, making sure that we are well fed and we're not skimping out on the creaminess, because this Clover Classic Dairy Snack is delicious. It is smooth, creamy dairy snack, and also it's made accordingly to Clover's unique recipe. So this is something that you can't find almost anywhere. Also, as a source of 10 vitamins, I think that it's all the way up, elevating it constantly. Dumi, you also have some chopped onions here for me to add to the mix.
Yes, Palisa, you know, one thing I love about a tartar sauce is that you can add whatever flavors you like to it. But one of the few flavors that I love to have in my tartar sauce is that punchy onion in there, as well as those gherkins. But I see that, Julie, you've also decided to add some egg into your tartar sauce as well.
Yeah, egg is delicious. I also sometimes add capers.
Oh.
I love capers in the tartar sauce.
And also what I love about the capers is that it definitely delivers some of that saltiness as well. As you know, some salt and fish are best friends. So being able to incorporate those capers, I'm very sure will take that tartar sauce to the next level. On my side, though, is this celery, Dumi, because I have never really seen a cucumber that you've created to make my type of tartar sauce.
Yeah, well, celery has that freshness about it, Balisa, that just clears the palate. So as you're eating the tangy flavors of the onion, the gherkin, and so forth, then the celery just comes in there and just clears it all up and all in one bite. So it's actually perfect for this recipe that we're making today.
Love that. Chef, do you want to continue? Brilliant. Dumi, and the breading station there?
Breading station is going very well, Palisa. All we want to make sure of is that we fully coat our calamari rings with our flour and all the other ingredients. But Julie, I just want to find out from you, we've touched on the different kinds of calamari and stuff like that. How different would calamari steaks be to calamari rings like the ones we're using now?
So calamari steaks are a lot thicker. You could cook them as a steak, so you cook the whole steak, or you could cut it up and crumb it like you're doing in strips and make calamari strips out of it. But the steak is actually quite nice if you score it and marinate it and then fry it like a steak in a pan.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And now another element when it comes to creating this delicious mix, is there any pre-cooking that needs to take place?
With the calamari?
Yes.
I don't suggest that you pre-cook calamari because the trick with keeping calamari tender is to cook it quickly and not to overcook it. So there's all sorts of stories about soaking it in milk or bicarb, but actually the only secret is to cook it for a short time. I actually count when I'm cooking it. 1, 2, 3, like 5 seconds. And if you stir frying it in a pan, 10, 15 seconds at most.
So it's very important to be very pedantic when it comes to calamari. It's not something that you can just throw in there and hope for the best. Julie, even count. I mean, how iconic is that, Dumi?
Exactly, Palisa. As you can see, I'm also doing this in batches because of that. I don't want to overload it because if I put too many of them in there, I wouldn't be able to see which was the last one, the first one I put in, meaning that it might then end up overcooking. So I'd rather just add them in a little at a time, keep an eye on which one I put first, which one I put last, and then, like you said, 1, 2, 3, 4. As soon as it hits the 5-second mark, it's time to come out.
Very important, if you pan frying calamari, so stir frying calamari, also fry it in very small batches, because if you put all that calamari in the pan at once, it's going to draw water and the calamari is going to boil. So dry off your calamari and then fry it in little handfuls for like 15 seconds at a time. So you'll get that crisp restaurant finish rather than just boiled calamari.
Oh no, we do not want that. We are enjoying crispy fried calamari here with the accompaniment of a creamy, tangy tartar sauce. Now, Dumi's done an incredible job of detailing the full ingredients and recipe to make all of the fishy goodness that we've been enjoying from the top of the week all until now. It has got it to the weekend, as I said at the top of the show. So we're still keeping those celebrations going. Dumi, as you put a very healthy dollop of that tartar sauce, girl.
Looks delicious.
It looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm just going to put the last bit of these calamari onto our plate. And our dish is done, Palisa. I actually can't wait to begin.
Love it. Again, head over to our website if you want to get in on this magic.
So, we've had classic fashion from Timby, classic cars, thanks Chad, and we've seen classic hairstyles. And you, Michael? Classic.
A classic range from Clover. Timeless taste.
Made with love by Clover.
Dumi and Julie, before we continue, I just want to get one top tip when creating these crispy calamari rings. Dumi?
I'd like to say, like we said, keep it quick on the pan. Don't overload your pot whenever you're doing that, because you know the more you add in there, the lower your temperature drops. So you want to keep it a little at a time for short bursts of time.
Would you agree?
I think she's covered everything, but this is also a good idea to drain the oil after you've fried it, to put it on some absorbent paper.
Love that. Now, we are continuing on this goodness. We've heard about a peach cobbler, but coming up, we're preparing cobbler with a twist by adding some winter fruits.
Express yourself.
afternoon, Express. Now, Dumi, you did promise us a cobbler, but not a peach cobbler.
Not a peach cobbler, Palisa. I mean, Julie said it right on Tuesday. She said you can't have seafood without a dessert. So we had to, you know.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, NutriKids is all about fun and nutrition for the little ones. The magical range of NutriKids is good choice for moms and an even better choice for kids. And did you know that for every NutriKids product purchase, you have contributed to a new house of hope in Gqeberha? With your help, Clover NutriKids, in collaboration with the Childhood Cancer Foundation of South Africa, CHOC, has supported this program for 15 years and counting. To celebrate this auspicious occasion, we are making a scrumptious warm NutriKids winter fruit cobbler that we know your kids will love. Dumi, I can just see your little one enjoying this already.
Oh, Palisa, let's not get that one. Let's not even mention his name because he might just reappear here and want to gobble everything up. So let's maybe get started with this recipe. It's quite a simple recipe, quite an easy one as well. To make the biscuit base, because I like to think of a cobbler as an upside down tart where the crust is on the top and the filling is at the bottom. And for that crust, or for the biscuit base for us, we've got some butter, some desiccated coconut, we've got some cinnamon, lemon, we've also got some flour, an egg, a touch of salt because that's always necessary, and we're going to bind it all together with our NutriKids dairy snack Palisa. That's perfect here because it's going to add the sweetness that we need, and it's not going to be overly sweet because we're taking all the sweetness just from here.
Brilliant. And as you are speaking about sweetness, Julie, you said on Tuesday, I do not have a sweet tooth, but does this cobbler sound like something you could enjoy?
Well, it's got a lot of fruit in it, so I think I could get past this sugar. Well, there's hardly any sugar in it, actually.
Very true. And speaking of which, what fruit will you be enjoying?
I'm going to be doing the apples and the gooseberries.
Lovely. And I've got some pears, I've got some nuts as well here. So let's get cooking. Dumi, is there any specific way you want me to chop up this pear, especially because it's a cobbler? Sometimes people love it to look appealing in different slices and different ways.
Very true, Palisa, but the other thing is because the biscuit goes on top, or the baked part of it goes on the very top, it's very beautiful where you can actually hide whatever mistakes you make there. So if you happen to cut some oblongs and some squares and some rectangles, that's fine because it's all going to be hidden at the very bottom of your cobbler. All I'm doing for the base is I've mixed in our dry ingredients here, which is some desiccated coconut, some salt, some of our flour and some cinnamon, and then I'm going to start folding in our wet ingredients, which will be our lemon juice, an egg, and some of our butter. So as you can see, I'm leaving the butter at the very end because I want to actually use my hands to sort of create a bit of a crumble, but it's not the same as a crumble. I'm just going to use my fingers to basically put everything else together.
I also love the fact, Julie, Utumi's got a 4-year-old. I'm sure she's spoken about him a few times. And she even said that given this recipe, he'll just magically appear ready for some more. And that is essentially the magic that is NutriKids. As we do talk about a magical range, NutriKids has a nutritious range that is for kids ages 3 and upwards, which includes instant medium-fat milk powder, instant medium-fat dairy liquid blend, low-fat dairy snack, and 3 fun flavors of fruit nectar blends. And that's essentially what we're using here today, Dumi.
Definitely, Palisa, because it's also a great source of calcium. And I mean, our kids are growing. What they want is you want to make sure that you give them nutrition. You don't want to just feed your children empty calories, you know. If you're going to be piling them on those calories and making sure they're nice and plump, you want to make sure that they're getting some nutrients from there. And NutriKids is perfect for this because you're getting all those nutrients they need into such desserts. I mean, it's a simple, easy dessert that can be enjoyed, but you also know that your kids are getting all the nutrients they need in there.
Absolutely. Now, Chef, when it comes to the apples and the different blend of fruits I suppose you can play with, am I able to go almost everywhere? I know that you're a fishmonger and someone who's a fish specialist, but in terms of flavors that you enjoy, especially with this winter fruit.
Well, I like the green apples because they're quite tart, and they're not going to just cook away. They're going to give some substance. If you were to, you could use anything, but if you were to use a soft red apple, it might just cook away.
Yeah, it might disintegrate.
Yeah, and the gooseberries obviously are delicious and coming into season, so why not?
I love that, Dumi. I had no clue. Gooseberries coming into season.
That's the other thing about desserts and dishes like this, Palisa, where you can keep it seasonal. Look at what ingredients are in season at the time, because then not only are you helping the environment, you're also helping your pocket, because that means that you're buying what's in season at the time that it's available at the price that works for you. You know?
Love that. Tick, tick, tick is what I'm all about. Now, let's put this all together. I think I'm ready for it. My pears are almost done. How hot is that pot?
I think it's hot enough,
we're
Balisa,
good to
because we
go.
want to make sure we render the flavors. But before I do any of that, Bali, I'm going to need to wash my hands because I think I've done all the work. I've taken away my son's work now.
Please do, girl. Wash your hands. Keep it clean. Keep it tidy. And as we are speaking about this, I mean, it's also set on providing, and I'm talking still about this Nutri-Kids, it's also set on providing a foundation of healthy development for kids as it contains essential nutrients and minerals, just echoing the sentiment, Dumi, that you have kind of touched on throughout this segment as we are making the dessert.
Correct, Bali. So I'm going to now add our Nutri-Kids to our mixture. As you can see, I've created somewhat of a biscuit base here, and I'm going to fold in our mixture here, our flavors. So the one flavor that we have here is the crazy caramel flavor. So imagine the crazy caramel flavor that's going to go with the caramelly goodness of the fruits that we're cooking at the very bottom of this cobbler. You know, it's going to work perfectly together.
Love that. Okay, these nuts are almost good to go. Is this going on top or inside, Dumi?
But I'm going to add some of them for texture into our top, and then we're going to put some also at the very bottom because we want to make sure that the flavors work well together. But we always, like we always say, texture. So why not have texture in the biscuit base as well as it bakes, as well as some texture inside.
Brilliant. Julie, I've kind of taken over here because I think I know what I'm doing.
Let's see.
In the pot, Dumi, before I add my apples, do I need to put anything else? I see we've got sugar as well.
We've got some sugar. Add your apples or add your fruits in there, and then as they cook down, they release some of their juices, and then we're going to go in with some of our Nutri-Kids juice blends that we're going to put in there as well. So you can put those in there. They're going to cook down, add a bit of the sugar, and because we want additional flavor, we're going to add some star anise as well. Let me take some of the nuts that
So, Dumi, here we are doubling up on the flavor here.
Correct.
Because today, even with the juice blend, we're using the pear and the nectar blend. So, that's going to be absolutely delicious for the little ones.
Perfect.
So,
That is enough.
that's enough?
Yeah.
I was going to add more. Okay.
So the good thing about this is that we're adding that flavor, a touch of those flavors in there to help release the flavors from the fruits we've added. But because it's all going to be covered with this beautiful biscuit that we're going to add in here, they're going to cook down as we put it on top. So let me just show you what we're going to do. I'm going to use my spatula to just spread this over our fruits. And then what's going to happen is that as the fruits get covered by the biscuit base, we're going to put it in the oven. The top is going to bake and get nice and golden brown, and the fruits are going to stew at the very bottom.
I love that. Okay, so Julie, do you think that this is something that you'd be trying at home?
It looks so easy and delicious for sure.
Why not? Now that's a treat your kids will love. To get this recipe, head over to afternoonexpress.co.za.
Nutri-Kids is what we need to help us to get strong in Nutri-Kids, great for mom, way better for kids.
Made with love by Clover.
The aprons are down and the food is out. That's true. It's that time of the show where we get to enjoy all of the frozen seafood-inspired meals that we have been honestly... I couldn't wait, Dumi.
I can't, Balisa. I'm just waiting for you to finish so we can tell the people what's on the menu here, right?
Yeah.
We started off with a beautiful prawn pasta, Balisa. I mean, the beautiful part about that is that we're merging a beautiful starch-like pasta with seafood, which is prawns in that instance, and the flavors just absorb beautifully into that. We've got our paella over here, which has a mixture of different kinds of seafood, including fish and prawns and mussels. And then we went over to our calamari rings that are served with a beautiful, tangy tartar sauce, Balisa. And then finishing it all off with my, because you know a girl's not done unless there's dessert, a beautiful winter fruit cobbler, Balisa. And as Balisa would normally say, let's eat.
I'm ready. Okay, let's get into it. Now, Chef, we have been asking, I keep calling Julie Chef, but that means that she's just an expert in her craft. Being a fishmonger and being a fish specialist, essentially, I could call you. What makes fish such an incredible, different type of protein? Especially for South Africans, we do love our chicken, we do love our red meat, but I believe that seafood is one of those unsung heroes.
Well, I think it's super healthy. I mean, it's a very healthy meat. It can be economical if you look after it and you buy sustainable, you buy the fish that we spoke about, the angelfish, calamari. So it can be good value for money. And it's a lovely... I grew up, fish was always the celebratory meal. If there was a birthday or a party or an anniversary, we would share dishes like this. We'd share fish or bride fish. So it's delicious.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, Dumi, speaking about keeping things delicious, on social media, we were asking all of our South African viewers, You know, it's all about fish today. So what makes you the perfect catch?
I can cook. That's it. I'm the perfect catch. I will cook for you anytime. You're sad, I cook. You're happy, I cook.
Cooking is a huge plus and advantage in relationships. Julie, for yourself, what makes you the perfect catch?
Well, I would have said cooking as well. Now I have to think of something different. So it is definitely cooking and sharing. And I think it's generosity that comes with cooking. It's not just food. It's about sharing something that's generous and enjoying food together and celebrating life. Because often we're eating and celebrating.
Truly what it is about. I mean, for myself, if I were to ask myself, you know, what makes me the perfect catch? I would say my sense of humor. I think that I can... Tommy says definitely, I bow and a kill. But exactly, I think I can turn any sad situation into something really positive, really upbeat. I'm always singing and dancing on my social media platforms. So I just think my positive energy and my sense of humor definitely tops the chart. But also, the cooking doesn't hurt. Stumi, this is delicious.
Vanessa, you and Julie are definitely the catch of the day because this tartar sauce is doing the things for this calamari and it's working with everything else that's on the plate. I absolutely love it. And Julie, you were right about that 5-second rule when it comes to the calamari because it's beautifully tender. It's not dry at all, and that's another problem that most people have when they have calamari. It can be too dry and becomes too rubbery. This one over here is just beautiful and tender.
Very tasty.
Now, we're not being shellfish with this week's awesome seafood recipes, so surf over to afternoonexpress.co.za to get all of it. Or tuna in on Saturday morning from 8:30 a.m. to catch our repeats. Join us again next week for more in-depth culinary masterclasses on Tuesday and Thursday from 5:30 p.m. But until then, Mzansi, good night, stay safe, and happy eating. Say it with steaming hot breakfasts, soul food Sundays, and slow-cooked dinners that'll warm any winter. Made with love by Clover.
Another feel-good production.